Hey guys, thanks for tuning back in. Just let me know who you are. We had Dave, we had Jay. Just type in again. Let me know that I've got you back in. Just had to close that one down. So the connection was a bit shaky. So we'll start again. So the connection is okay now. You see my message coming to shot now in the dressing gown?
Sorry.
So just try putting the kids together to bed. Hi, Oliver. Hope you're okay. We just try putting the kids together to bed nice and early. And of course, that's not paid off. That's not worked at all. They're still bouncing around. So we're going to do as much technical stuff as you want to do tonight, as deep as you want to go into the swing. I've got sort of 2 or 3 themes that I'm going to talk about. I'll break the technique of the swing down. So let me know what are the subjects you've got, any sort of ideas or sort of words you may have heard which you don't quite understand. What are technical phrases? Oftentimes the technical phrases are jargon. Now I read it myself when I see online. I look at the stuff and think, what the hell are they talking about? And it's very, very complicated, and I sort of try and look at it and work it out and have a good bit of study on it. And they're just saying something quite simple in either a very technical way or a very scientifically correct way, which doesn't always make it easy to understand. And that's the same for us all. It's been the same ever since golf tuition started, really. You know, some people make it very, very complicated or use words which are quite technical, but we should always be able to work it back to an understandable point. So let me know who you are. Type in online. Just send a message there to the group chat. And then we'll get cracking in a minute. So we're about 10 minutes late so far. But I can see 2 or 3 of you keep popping in and out of the chat. Hi, Mark. You okay? I had to restart it. So we got Jay back. Is Jay back yet? And how's the picture? Is the picture okay from there? It's not too bad actually, is it? Clarity of that picture. Alrighty, so it's just about 10 past. Hopefully we'll get... Hiya, Dave. Good to see you back. It's slightly dark. What happens if I put that light on? Is that better? That should be better because the light's not quite in shot. I can hear my kids bouncing around upstairs. They're supposed to be in bed. I've got 1 at 2, 1 at 5. And they know when I'm talking to the soldiers. They get all excited and one of them might come down shortly, I think. Alrighty, so good evening, everybody. Great to see you all. Thanks for tuning in. Hi, Jay. Show you where the head connects to the ball. That's really interesting. That's a great point, actually. There's lots and lots of... Good evening, James. My extreme pleasure. Thank you for your time and thank you for your service. I always say this to the servicemen, the On-Course Foundation. It means an awful lot to us. Hi, Vikram. Good to see you. It means an awful lot to us, dealing with you guys and sort of helping you on your recovery, whichever that recovery that might be. Is my wife coming through now? Cup of tea for herself? Sloping through in a dressing gown, looking elegant. Thanks. Just give me a death stare. I'll close this door so we have. It means an awful lot to us dealing with you guys and being part of your recovery, whether your recovery or your rehab is physical or mental. We just hope that golf gets you there in the end or helps you on that path, that journey to rehab. And if we can find you employment or we get you memberships of clubs or get you involved with a community of people playing golf, then it's a massive bonus and a benefit to us as a foundation. It means an awful lot to us. Do never, ever underestimate that feeling from all the people who work at the On-Course Foundation, including the pros and also the golfers who you come into contact with. All right, so technical stuff tonight. Any questions? Thank you, Oliver. Thank you. Any questions, just type them on the sidebar. And like I say, just try and find those sort of 3 things tonight, the 3 main components of the swing mechanics. Okay. So I'm going to talk about them in the sort of the sense where the world's best players would utilize these three things. And then how we can relate that back to you as servicemen. You may be struggling with an injury, physical injury, or a physical limitation. And I'll also interject when I'm talking about the technique with how we get around that with the servicemen. So there's three elements, the three main elements of the swing mechanics. Let me just tilt this swing down a little bit. And the first one are your pistons. It's how your body moves backwards and forwards. Now, in a golf swing, it's very easy to look at the swing from this angle here and think it's one-dimensional. You know, when I make my swing, let's have a little bit of light here. When I make a swing one-dimensional, you look at the golf swing from this angle here, you think, oh, I'm just sort of moving backwards and forwards. When in reality, the true movement in the swing is actually this way and backwards here, because my body weight moves more this way to my rear than it does this way to my side. So when we look one-dimensionally at the swing, there's no movement this way in the swing. There's no exchange of energy, or a great exchange of energy. The great exchange of energy is going from the front to the back. So the first thing I want to talk about are the pistons, how the pistons work. Now, watch me here now. So on the way back, my right side goes behind me. If my right side goes behind me, then my left side goes in front of me. And that's the first motion in a swing, because your legs, your torso are much more powerful, and they create the range for everything else to move into. Now, if you're struggling with a lower limb injury, let's say you've got missing legs above or below the knee, then that's when we start moving you into positions where we don't have to stand with our feet absolutely pointing to the target. We might position you to create this position here, whereby the right side is already behind. So when you set yourself up to the ball, we might just say, okay, let's pull that right side back here. And that in itself has already created a position where my body weight is now behind. It's gone this way. And I can show you pictures of all the world's best players doing that same motion. We don't do it any differently. There's quite a few things in the swing which are constants. So if we look here, Dustin Johnson, you can see, hi Kate, nice to see you again. Long time no see. Checking in, better late than never, I like it. So we can see there's Dustin Johnson at the top of his swing. Look how far behind him his right pocket has gone. His right bum has gone. And we can see a lot of activity there in the knees. One knee is straight and up, and one knee is bent and pointing down. So his pistons there, the pistons of his body, and his huge muscles in his legs, are this motion here. So as he pulls that right side back, like that, that left side goes forwards. And that gives him the look of his legs being very, very active. So that's the first thing. We get the pistons moving backwards and forwards. The right side goes behind us. Now, some people refer to that as a turn. I've stopped using that phrase about 3 years ago now. I tried to get them to turn all the time. And I found it hard sometimes to say, can you get you to turn? Then I started changing my vocabulary. I thought, well, hang on a minute, if we sort of put our right side behind us, then when you put your right side behind you, it creates a much bigger turn. It makes that position much, much greater, much, much wider. And in terms of imagery of how I'm trying to translate what I'm saying to you, what you're trying to process, what I'm trying to say, is I just found I got much more success with people when I said put the right side behind you. Because then they started putting their right leg behind, the right shoulder behind them, and that got them into position. So your pistons, these big muscles, get the whole of the swing moving. Right side behind you creates all this lovely power. By the time you swing at the top here, you can't do anything else but swing down and give the ball some real smack into the back of the ball. So that's your pistons. The second thing are the angles of your pistons. So watch me here now. If I stand vertically, then that's the angle of my shoulders, and that's the angle of my hips. Now, remember a moment ago, I was talking about Dustin Johnson. I said one knee has gone backwards and up, and one knee has gone forwards and down. His knees are at an angle as well. They simply don't turn at the same angle. They turn on their own angle, as do the hips, as do the shoulders, and we call that the swing plane. Now, I think it was Jay who said how the head connects to the ball. This is an absolutely critical part of this, Jay. So if we think what the pistons do, the legs and the body, putting the right side behind us, that creates all the energy in the swing, the massive amount of energy in the swing. Now, What then happens is that energy has to be on plane. And what is a plane? A plane is just the angle at which we swing around. That would be a horizontal plane. Yeah. And this here is a golf plane. You see that angle there, you see? So my shoulders have their plane. If I tilt forwards, that creates the angle of the plane. If I stand vertically, then that's an incorrect angle of plane for the shoulders in the golf swing. Same thing applies with the hips. They have their plane here, and of course that's very evident in the knees angle here. So the plane of the swing is absolutely key. A plane in the dictionary is just a long continuous surface, a flat continuous surface. So why is plane so important to strike? Well, if I get my plane correct, it means that the club swings down on the same plane, angle, line that it's intended to go up and down on. So you get this motion where you've got more chance of the club swinging up and down on a similar plane up and a similar plane down, and that means you've got a chance of getting a decent contact with the ball. Now, of course, there's loads of examples of pros who have this really weird swing out here, and then the body moves around, you flick in here, and then all these positions get out of symmetry. But they've been doing it 100 years. These are some of the best players in the world. They've found really quirky ways of getting the club to swing into position. So the plane of your shoulders, plane of your hips and plane of your knees are determined by how well you stand to the ball. If we get somebody who slumps to the ball like this, and then in this sort of odd position here, it means that their shoulders are going to move around at an angle above the ball and end up topping the ball. So your point, Jay, is very apt. You know, how do you get contact with the ball? And it all starts with how we address the ball. So if we can simply get ourselves to bend forward and lean forwards a bit, in that position there, you don't have to have a perfectly straight back like that. That's a false position. It's also bad for the back, so it sort of crunches the back up a little bit. But as long as you can position yourself and tilt forwards a bit, hang the arms, then that's good enough for a goal swing. Yeah. So that's the plane of the body. We're now going to talk about the plane of the hands and the arms and how the hands and arms work. Now, the hands and arms are fascinating because they, of course, have all the feeling in them. Everything you feel in a goal swing, you don't feel in your bum or your knees or your midriff or your chest. You feel in your hands and arms. And that's why we wear a glove. You've seen me talk about this before in the sessions. Why do we wear a glove on one hand? Well, when I hold a club correctly here, like this, my left hand, my glove hand, has total contact with the handle. Yeah? So it's totally connected to the handle there. Whereas my right hand, and it goes on, isn't connected to the handle. You can see a lot of gaps there where my left hand would sit, my glove hand would sit. And really, I'm only holding that club in those three fingers there. So the left hand is the dominant hand. So going back to how we started and how we got into position, the pistons start first of all. They're big muscles. Your hands are only a tiny little muscle, but they've got loads of feeling, loads of sense in them. Yeah. So when I place the glove hand on the handle there, what I'm actually trying to do is get the back of that glove hand on my club's face to marry. You see, that would be a position where I would hook the ball, and that'd be a position where I slice the ball. So when we're watching your swings, we're looking at your play. Oftentimes, when we look at your setup, then you get to the top of the swing, we look and see if that club face there marries the back of the left hand. And if you think about that, if golf was a one-handed game, you'd play it with the back of your left hand, bang, or you'd play with the palm of the right hand. Yeah? That's a hitting position there, and that's a hitting position there. So when we start to talk about the three elements, the pistons, the plane, and then we talk about the levers are totally dependent on the quality of that hand position there, how that glove hand fits on here. So what I do, I'll come back to the hand position shortly, but the levers are really the final part of the power sequence. There's a little bit of cascade of power in the swing. So when we set ourselves up here, we pull our pistons back, as long as our body swings on plane, it means that our hands and arms, our levers, will swing the club up here, and now I'm in a real position for power. Like Dustin Johnson, I've pulled my right side behind me, or the body turn, yeah? You can see I've set myself up on plane here. I haven't tilted up. This is why people say, oh, you've got to keep your head still. It's almost a correct point, that. When we talk about the keeping the head still, the bouncing up and down here, my head is should weigh about 1/8 of my entire body weight. Now, if I tilt my body properly around, get the pistons working, get to the top of the swing up here, my head hasn't really moved. So If my body was to work off plane, of course my head will move. It's, oh, you moved your head. It's not nice the head that moves, it's the body didn't stay on plane. So what we do with the levers here is we're trying to get this final lever between the hands and the shaft of the club to snap into position and return to the ball. Bang! You see that action there? Bang! So I create this angle on the way back, that lever. As I come down, that weight of the club head as I'm swinging smashes into place. So let's talk about the levers in the swing and where they swing to. So the glove hand again shows its importance here now, because the biggest, longest lever in the swing is the radius from the left shoulder to the club head. Now, if I put my right hand on the handle, you see my right hand goes lower on the handle, therefore my right shoulder is closer to the club head, therefore it's a much shorter radius than that radius there. So this radius here is your important one. Now, we've taught loads and loads of one-handed and one-armed golfers to play in the Arm Course Foundation, and we can find lots of different ways of getting one-handed players to hit the ball a good distance, because that lever is so powerful. That lever between the hand and the forearm and the shaft of the club on both sides is very powerful. If I take my kid's beanbag here and just make a little knock into that beanbag, watch. That's a hell of a smack, isn't it? Bang! Now you put all that force and weight to the back of the golf ball with that leverage and that powerful head, that ball will go a long way. So those are the three main elements. If we look at the levers from this side here, the hands and arms, they start out in front of us. We don't get bunched up. The smaller the levers are, the less power we've got. And that is not going to hurt anywhere near as much as that big wide lever creates much more power. So we start with the levers out in front of us here. We don't get bunched up and cramped. Don't get too close to the ball. Levers out here. As we pull the right side behind on the way back, that motion there should be natural. It should occur. Doesn't always happen that way, and sometimes as coaches we've got to come over and just say, okay, let's get those levers working a little bit more this way. And a great reference point for you now, so that you can do at home. If you've got a window or a mirror, I'm in quite a small room here, but I can swing against my windows here when I'm practicing at home. Have a look and just see if the plane of your swing looks about right. Now that's a bit vague when I say that, but really, if I tilt myself forwards like that to a golf position, you can see there, that's the plane of my swing. It shouldn't be up here, should it? That happens, go swing, back down to the ball. The other thing you do is look at your leg action there. Now, if you're someone out there who's got a leg injury, or you're missing the limb at the lower part, I always recommend starting like that. Split your legs, put them nice and wide, because already you're in a position which is the top of the backswing position. Now, yes, it's slightly crooked, but it doesn't matter if you don't hit the golf ball where your feet are pointing. And if you did, and I can assure you this, if you hit the golf ball exactly where your feet are pointing, all we do as coaches is get you to point your feet on target. Now, you've heard me say this so many times before. You guys know yourselves that a bullet doesn't travel perfectly straight from a gun. It barrels, it rolls, and it moves. So where you calibrate your rifle for is to determine where the bullet finishes on target. Same in the golf swing. We've got a standard position which guarantees the ball gets struck properly, going back to your point, Jay, and then finishes somewhere near its target. Now, a golf ball will not fly perfectly straight. It's always got to have a little bit of bend on it. So it doesn't really matter where you point your feet. You've got to position your feet and your legs to provide as much stability and power as possible. Now, most of the guys who are missing a limb, a leg above the knee here, will topple off balance a little bit in the swing, but every single time they do it, we're looking for you toppling the right way. I've seen some of the world's best players hit shots and sort of topple around and fall off balance. There's so much energy and power provided in the golf swing that you're going to fall off balance sometimes. It's not that big a deal, particularly if you've got a lower body injury. Now, in terms of levers, a rehearsal swing for you. And you go, swing halfway back. Now, what's halfway back? Well, it's when the glove arm is parallel to the ground. That's an upswing. That's very much a short swing. Now, if I then get my body turning, I've not overused that word much, but I'll say put my right side behind me, and my left arm, my glove arm, is parallel to the ground, then I'm looking for a 90-degree angle there. And those three positions, right side behind me, back to target, position 2, left arm parallel to the ground, and position 3, a full cock of the wrist there, that's not a million miles away from full swing anyway, is it? Just with a continuation ready from there. So check those positions. Then look side on, So you mirror, as you swing back and get those three positions, right side behind, your left arm parallel to the ground, your hands also go to your sternum. That's where my swing is too flat or too deep, and that's where my swing is too steep or too upright. So going back to the plane of the swing, remember I start at the plane of the knees, the plane of the hips, the plane of the shoulders. Well, the hands and arms have a plane as well. And ideally, you want your hands and arms to get the club so you're more or less over that right shoulder there. Some of the world's best players get the club slightly flat. Matt Cooch is a very famous one there, as is Garcia. When he brings the club down, he goes up, and he brings the club right down here, very flat, very much behind him. The majority of the world's best players swing over that shoulder or slightly higher that shoulder. It's preferable for you guys and for most amateur golfers to try and swing the club slightly low towards that right shoulder or onto it there. Don't get too high up here. So quite a complicated position to try and get back down to the ball from. So Mark Davis, thinking about turning and pistons, does Dechambeau achieve such huge distance because he gets more turn out of his pistons, or is his secret all down to pure strength? Well, Bryson is an amazing study of Bryson Dechambeau because he's done something which all the world's best players are going to do anyway at some stage, which is bulk up and obsess about power and speed. Now, about 10 or 15 years ago, the statisticians started to work out that the longest hitters earn twice as much money as the straightest hitters, which is a remarkable statistic, really. And so what they found was that the premium on hitting fairways and hitting the ball straight off the tee was actually very low. The premium on hitting the ball as far as possible was very high, because they realised then that pros who were much, much closer to the green, they could recover better. They found the game much easier because the course was so much shorter. So the first part of the answering the question there is that Dechambeau is obsessed with distance. So what he's doing is done everything he can at every level and every sort of point in the swing to try and create as much distance as possible. And he's worked with the long driving coaches. Now, I work quite a lot with a long drive coach, a chap called Lee Cox, very famous man, an extremely good coach, and also a sort of real pioneer in this field. And so he's been studying this for years and years. So I'm always picking these brains whenever I go and see him. He's based in North London. He's all over the internet. You'll find him, Lee Cox, out of the Shire. And so he was one of the first guys to really understand how power is created in all sorts of different sports and all sorts of different sciences and all sorts of different fields, how people really generate all this power. And so what he did was he started working with the long drive guys, hitting the ball 400 yards, on getting this right side to go all the way behind. And he talks a lot about the force of the swing going backwards here. And the big giveaway is when you watch Bryson Dechambeau, in terms of how he's moving his body differently, I'll just show you down here, is how his left foot, as he swings through, spins around like this. Because he's putting so much force into his pistons that it creates so much energy that when he swings through, he ends up sort of spinning around over here because his body weight's going so powerfully forwards and backwards in his pistons. That in turn, Mark, gives him a slightly more fire away, question away, Kate. As many questions have you got? I'm here all night for you. So that in turn gives Bryson Dechambeau a slightly bigger turn than the rest of the guys. Now, there's a limit to how much one can turn on the backswing anyway. And this is how funny, this is how quickly the game changes. When I first went to PGA school, and Alistair Barr was one of my first examiners and coaches at PGA school. And I've always been very fond of Alistair. I have a good relationship with him for many years. So I first met Alistair when I was 19. I'm 47 now. And he was one of the men who wrote the book on PGA tuition. And I'm quite sure in saying, he says, covering his track slightly, I'm quite sure in saying that the book said the shoulders turn 90 degrees and the hips turn 45 degrees. The world's best players now will turn their shoulders well into 110, 120, 130 degrees around here. They're going a huge range here. So when we measure the turn, again, a phrase I don't particularly use, the right side goes beyond 90 degrees and it goes all the way around here. If you look at Bryson Dechambeau, this is a fascinating point if you look at his swing, is his right hip doesn't go this way at all. It actually comes inwards like this because he's putting his right side as deep as possible in the swing. So as he goes back, he goes very deep that right side, right into the socket here. On the return swing, he pulls through, spins his leg around, and he gets a lot of speed and power. The other thing that he did as well was that he just went to the range and saw, how the hell can I hit the ball as far as possible? How can I bang it as far as possible? Started working on his TrackMan, Max TrackMan GC quad that he uses, the tech that he uses. And he just obsessed on distance, and he picked people's brains and said, okay, I want to hit the ball as far as possible. And the big revelation to all us pros over the years has been, and this goes back to Mark Davis's point. No, Mark, it goes back to Jay's point about contact with the back of the ball. If you get one message from tonight, Jay, this is it, right? The quality of strike, means that you've got to hit the golf ball somewhere on the vertical middle. Left and right of that isn't exactly ideal because the club will bend and it'll sort of send the ball a bit off target. But if the strike is from the vertical part of the club here, the vertical middle, rather than the horizontal middle, the vertical middle, then that ought to mean that the club has got a better chance of being perfectly square at the back of the ball. Now, what we know is the squarer the hit, the faster the ball will fly, and the further the ball will fly. Now, of course, that then means if it's a square hit, the club face is pointing on target. So straight, long, power, distance all go hand in hand. You can't hit the ball a long way if the club face is pointing off target. No matter how fast you swing, you get a glancing blow on the ball. You sort of lose the power in the strike. So the idea behind the strike, Jay, is that we're always looking to find the sweet spot of the club, and we're trying to square that face as much as possible. Now, if you're somebody who curves the ball to the right or curves the ball to the left, you're not going to get as square a strike as possible because the club face has to be pointing somewhere off target. So that's the first oblique error. Is the face pointing to the right or is it pointing to the left? The second oblique error is that you might be going too much under or too much over the ball. So you're not getting the quality strike because you're getting the sort of glancing blow above or below the ball. So we're looking for that square contact to the back of the ball. Now, I've just seen someone else ask me a question about tips from stopping from hitting the ball behind. So this links in again, JC. So if we know a square strike is a smack at the back of the ball, if we have loft on the face and that square strike is still at the back of the ball, but it's slightly sort of underneath at the back of the ball, if we then have a lot of loft on the ball, we need to hit down a little bit more to get that square contact. If we're hitting up on the ball or fluffing around behind the ball, you've got real issues with the lofted club on the strike. So quality of strike is absolutely key. How do you get better quality of strike? Well, what I do is go to the DIY shop, get some masking tape, like that sort of papery tape, and you put it on the face there. You'll hit some shots and it'll give you an indication of where you've struck. Or you can get like a felt tip pen. Get a felt tip pen and then get your golf ball. There should be one up there, but my son's taken it. Get a felt tip pen and just draw some lines on the, or some squiggles on it. Put that down on the tee pin where you intend to hit, and then just see where you're striking the ball. Now, it could be something as simple as if you keep striking the ball from over here, get closer to it. Or if you keep striking the ball from over here, stand further away. And just try and get a perspective of where you're getting that strike from. When we give lessons, over time, we get used to listening to what certain strikes are. So an open face, a closed face, or hitting the ball high or hitting the ball low. They have a distinctive difference in the sound. It can be quite a small difference, but over time, you sort of learn it. What you've got to do as you're learning is trying to work out feel and actual reality. Because when you hit a strike, oh, well, that came off such and such a part of the face, you might then look at the face and the dot might be a completely different place to where you thought it was. So I would, in the first instance, start drawing circles on the golf ball that you hit. Now, if you're at the driving range, that's quite tricky. You might get told off. But the masking tape, like I say, just put some tape on the face and give you an idea of the imprint. If you buy some masking tape and every 10 shots or so, just replace it, it'll give you an idea of where your strike pattern is. And at least then you've got a starting point. Now, if you want to then send me pictures of those strike patterns that you've got when you get back on the range, I'll send you my mobile number. Send WhatsApp of what you've got. Or even send me WhatsApp of your swing anyway. I'll have a look at that. Mike Brown used to spray foot powder onto his clubs. Or hairspray. You can spray it onto the face of the club, gives you an idea of where the strike is. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Alrighty, so I lost my track a bit there. You asked me about striking the ball, where the head connects to the ball. Okay, so I'll go back to you, Jay, now. How you get the correct contact in the back of the ball. Well, it changes on the different clubs. With a driver, a square contact is a face which points to the target. It's the same for all the clubs. But with the drive, we want the square contact to be slightly ascending. And that's why we put the ball in a high tee peg, put the ball forward in the stance, then we try and get that smack on the upwards smack of the ball. As a general rule, if your ball flies right or left, it's because your club face is pointing in that direction a bit too much. Yeah. So if you start seeing the ball flying in a consistent direction, that's when you start saying, okay, well, how do I manipulate that club face to come back here? And it's as simple as if you were playing tennis or squash, and I said, hit me a high shot, you would try and hit a high shot. If hit me a low shot, you'd do it, hit left or hit right. You'd maneuver the racket face around. Same in golf, you're going to try and maneuver that racket face, the club face, into position there. Now, in terms of stopping from hitting down behind the ball there, Jay, like you need to have a little bit more, get that weight forward, get your body turning. I think I just might have frozen for a second there. But make the follow through. It might just be something as simple as when you make your swing up to here, get yourself all the way through and hold your follow through for 2 seconds. That'll force the contact a bit more this way as you come through. So next question, we've done Bryson Dechambeau. First one, I am confused, is from Kate now. As during my last lesson, I was told I had to load my right leg on the backswing. It does sound like it's the opposite of what you've said. But if we look here, Kate, I think you may have just logged in time for this. That's one of the world's best players. And look at the difference in the leg shape there. So the leg that's gone behind him is right leg, great. And his left leg has got lots and lots of bend in it. So really, Kate, you want fluidity in the swing to create power. And if we lock that leg and lock that hip and sort of turn and don't make any motion there, we're not using the most powerful muscles that we've got in the body, which are your legs. You go to a gym, you know yourself, you work out, you're fit, you can do a lot more with your legs than you can do with your arms. And if you think you then get those legs moving, get some real activity in the legs, boy oh boy, you'll get some power. So just on that note, because it sounds like you've been given some conflicting advice to what I'm saying here. I'm not saying I'm right. There's Angel Cabrera. Again, look at the difference in the legs there. One's very bent. One's straightened, hasn't it? So it's all very well me saying this now. So obviously I wasn't there when you took the lesson. But I would definitely be looking at what the world's best players do. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's Jack Nicklaus, the greatest player of all time. There's a big difference in leg flex. There's a big difference in leg flex there, isn't there? You can see his right leg is, like I say, not quite straight, but a little bit bent, only a tiny bit. But then look at that left leg, boy, oh boy. And Jack Nicklaus was huge. He was so long in his day. Okay, let's on this one. This is Jamie Sadlowski, one of the longest hitters in the world. So this guy doesn't even play golf. All he does is bang balls as far as possible. Look at his right leg. Tons and tons of activity there. It's straightened. There's no doubt about that. And his left leg has got tons of flex in it. So I could show you these pictures all day. Now, I have given lessons in the past where I've said, oh, try and keep your right knee straight, because we were taught to do that, and yet the pros weren't doing it. Now, we were taught to say, no, keep that right knee braced, and you turn against it, create some resistance in the swing. It's toffee. All the good players put that right leg up and get that left leg out there. And this is where we've got so much information now. There's so much information online that we can dig into. Kate then says, I have a real problem with wanting to shoot the left hip forward, lean back and try and be athletic and make a backwards C-shape hurting my back and generally being ineffective. I have a real problem wanting to shoot the left hip forward. Right, your hips have got an incredibly small range of motion. Now your hip floor as a female is more in this way, and a male's hip floor or pelvic floor, beg your pardon, is more out that way. Think of a silverback gorilla that's in the bum right out there. But in terms of the range of motion in the hips, it doesn't move much from that to that. Now, I know I'm wearing dark here, it's not easy to see, but you try it yourself. You just try and feel how much range of motion you think you've got in your hips. It's a very small amount. Hips only got one motion. They go backwards and forwards like that. And your hips, of course, is connected to your spine and to your legs. So really, if I get my legs working properly, then my hips have got no choice but to move properly. So I don't think that you've got a problem with your left hip as such. Okay, because the hips don't really move that much in a swing. I would say you're not getting that left leg pulling backwards very much during the swing. So you're going to love this now. So I said about my one of my mentors, Lee Cox. He posted a video recently. Let's get him up. And this will make your teeth curl when you watch this. One of my favourite new videos that I've found. I'm doing research all the time on the golf swing. Just picking up little tips from what other guys do. Right, now you watch this here. Okay. Watch this guy's left leg. You got it? And so at the top, he's messing about. Exercise. Watch his left leg. Out of the way now. Big heave ho out of the way. Wow. Now you look at that. And that's what I was saying before about Bryson Dechambeau's leg. Now this guy's one of the longest hitters in the world. These are guys who are competing all the time, long driving competitions around the world. They just want to hit the ball as far as possible. So what he's training his body to do now is he softly drops his arms down. No resistance there. Now watch that left leg. Bang. Boy, oh boy, it's out of the way. So if I just pause that now, if I go back, then what you see is, because he's yanked that left leg out of the way, you can see he's really moved it right out of the way. That effectively has moved his hips, Kate, his left hip, a long way behind him. So he hasn't moved his hips at all there. His hips have moved, his leg has moved. As he came down then, he pulled his left side out of the way, and because that left side pulled backwards, his hips are now pointing at least 50, 60 degrees to the left of target. So the idea that you're suddenly bump your left hip forward, it's more likely that your left leg isn't going backwards. So here's a sequence for you. Up to the top of the swing. On the return, try and straighten that left leg. We know from the world's best players that they bend that left leg heavily on the way down because the right side goes behind, the left side goes forwards. Golf swing has actions and reactions. On the return, that left leg pulls out of the way. My body is now in that hitting position. So it sounds to me that you need to do a bit of fluidity. You need some fluidity in the swing. In your legs, Kate. Don't restrict the movement of them, and don't have the hips sliding. You don't want any motion like that in the golf swing. The golf swing goes behind us, behind us. Amazon sell hundreds of those stickers for a few pounds. I was trying to save you some money there, Mark. I don't want to sort of feed the Amazon machine any further. Alrighty, so any more questions? Oh yeah, Kate was saying about the left hip. Yeah, so about the backwards C, I meant to come back to the backwards C there. It does hurt the back. Now, the back is not in a friendly position like that because all the strain in the body goes right back here. So really what should happen is the left side pulls you out of the way, the force of the swing pulls you forwards, and there's a slight curve in the back, but nothing dramatic. Even if you go forwards like that, it's fine. And I can see I'm 48 now, 47 now, 48 in a couple of weeks. But I've seen in my swing over the years that my back, I swing every day, and I'm hitting balls every day. And I'm not particularly fit, but I'm sort of fit for golf. I see myself when I'm swinging through now, and I finish my swing, I get very upright. I don't put any pressure on my back at the end of the swing. And when I was younger, I would definitely have that right shoulder lower, and I've been in a tilted position here for much longer. But as you get older, you want to sort of try and avoid that. And anybody at my age will tell you who's doing the PGA Pro, you've got to swing relative to your age, and in your case, all of you guys, if you've got a physical injury or physical limitation, you've got to swing relative to that. Because you know better than anybody, your body's going to stay upright and it's going to accommodate a pain-free movement before it even thinks about giving you the luxury of a golf swing. So as you're setting yourself up to play, if you shuffle yourself into position to avoid an injury or a twinge or anything, that's your body's way of saying the best way for me to do this is not to be in pain. And you can't, I don't say I've seen anybody be able to swing through pain, really. You might have one or two swings, but the body just always wins every time. Alrighty, anything else you want to talk about? I'll give it a second because there's a bit of a lag between what I say and what you hear. Any other topics that you want to cover? Any issues that you might have? I'm going to try and find a different video for you. Okay, here's another guy with a long drive bomber. Again, look at his left leg as he comes through. He really jumps it out of the way, doesn't he? Watch. Now, one of you mentioned about getting a quality strike. If you look there, you can see that player is actually leaning the club shaft of his driver away from the ball. So why is he doing that? So he's not really perfectly vertical. He doesn't lean backwards like that. And I think I was saying to you before, Jay, about the quality strike. That strike needs to be coming up with the driver to optimize power. So if that's the driver, we've only got a small amount of loft on the face, we'll lean the club up, create a bit more height on it. The same is true, but in reverse. With a lofted club, we actually lean the club shaft forwards. Now, I posted a video on my YouTube today discussing exactly this, which I discuss all the time. So if I go to my YouTube account, then, okay, if I go here, then, okay, this is the picture I chose. I can't find it now. Okay. Let me find a better. I'll do that. You can just see it there. That's a Tiger Woods video that I posted today. And I talk about the importance of the shaft leaning forwards when you make contact with an iron. So with the driver, we put the ball forwards in the stance, so when we hit the ball, the club's ascending, and therefore the club shaft will be slightly behind. With an iron, on the opposite of the case, on the hands in front here, you see? So my hands are in front of the shaft when I strike an iron. The reason for that, if you take an A-time for argument's sake, and let's just say for ease of argument, it's got 40 degrees of loft on it, when I hit down on the ball to get the quality strike like that, it might only have 30 degrees of loft on it. But still 30 degrees of loft is going to send the ball up in the air quite a nice height. So in terms of getting a quality strike, you want your hands in front of the ball at impact with an iron, and you want your hands slightly behind the ball at impact with the driver. Now, if that sounds slightly complicated, have a look at that Tiger Woods video. I explain it in a bit more detail there. I've got a bit more freedom to swing outdoors. But in essence, what I'm saying is that when we take an iron club, that's the hitting position there with the club shaft leaning forward. So again, something you can do at home. You just pick your iron up and have some swings and just try and get that motion there. As you come through, the club shaft stays behind slightly. Not this. That's a terrible position. Good players don't flick and get stuck here. They keep moving and they sort of pull that shaft into position. All right, guys. Well, any more questions before we switch off? It's about 9 o'clock, I think, isn't it? 10:02. We'll do it again next week if you're around. Tuesday night suits me quite nicely, actually. And it's always good to have your input. You've got my mobile number there. I'll send you my email as well. Any questions, just give me a shout. Sometimes I'm a bit slow in responding, or sometimes I forget. But anyway, just give me a shout. And like I say, tune into these events. Just nothing beats swinging in the garden, honestly. Just doing little things in the garden where you're swinging away, or you're just trying to rehearse movements, or just trying to work out the puzzle. Golf's a massive puzzle to us all. Me included. I learn something new every single day. I'm always picking up new things. I've just discovered a new drill about 2 weeks ago, and I really love it. So I wish you all well. Again, like I said at the very beginning, you mean an awful lot to us as coaches and as staff for all the On-Course Foundation employees and golf pros. We're very proud to be associated with you. And in tough times like this, you've got to keep your chin up, keep your head above water, stay in contact with each other, stay in contact with me, Di or Alistair. Always ask us a question. Di and Alistair are missing you guys like crazy as well as I am. So get in touch with us. There's nothing wrong with asking us a question. We love blethering on about the golf swing. So thanks ever so much, and I look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Keep healthy, all of you. God bless you.